Today, my guest is Jordan Dorn, co-founder and CEO of Zuma Nutrition. Zuma has gone from zero to scale in 3 short years. We'll dive into what it takes to get a supplement business off the ground, some of the mistakes and successes he's had along the way, and how you can learn from them and grow your supplement business yourself. Let's get started. Welcome to Health Business Mastery, the Creative Thirst podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Hewitt. All right, Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Bobby.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. What you built with Zuma is something really special. The products are fantastic. And I think our listeners would really enjoy hearing like how you got started and your founder story, and really from zero to traction and what that journey was like for you.
Yeah. So it was a bumpy journey to get to this point. I started off after college. I was working in commercial real estate. I lived in Los Angeles. I had a friend that lived in Venice that was running a dietary supplements brand. And I remember I was sitting with him at a restaurant on the weekend, like after being pretty stressed out from a long work week, working like 9 to 5. And he was showing me what he had been doing he was using influencer marketing and affiliates. And, had driven, I remember he had this weekend where he drove like 20 grand in sales in a weekend. And I was just like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I really wasn't happy at my position. I was pretty early on. And so I wasn't very like committed to staying in this. So it was I think I was probably 6 months into working this kind of dead end job. I was kind of pushing paper and wasn't very happy. And so I offered to work for my friend for free and quit. I started working for this person and was working for this brand. The brand's called Now Alchemy. And what was interesting is he was actually on to some very interesting types of ingredients. I don't want to talk too much about his business, but I'll just say I didn't like how everything was run, but I worked under him. So that was like November 2017. And he actually, I think got a little bit nervous because I was trying to do so much with the business that he got a little bit of like trust issues with me. And actually right around February, I brought in a potential investor to invest in his business, and he ended up backing out of the deal. And he needed funding for the business to be successful, which we can talk about the importance of funding in a bit. And I wasn't very happy about that because he didn't consult me on backing out of the investment opportunity. And so we got in conflict. He actually fired me. So I then started working with this investor on starting our own CBD company. And about a couple months into that, I brought in a contact I had through my network, Richard, who's my current business partner. And we started a bit CBD business. And, we actually got a lot of traction around LA, mostly selling B2B, doing a little bit of limited e-commerce, selling different types of CBD. And that was right around when the government came out with all this new registration requirements for CBD. And Richard, who is my current business partner, a little background on him. He's an amazing product development expert. He's a functional medicine practitioner going back to the 1980s. And so I kind of pitched him. He had an existing product line of about 160 products that were sold to patients. And I was like, hey, could we get away from CBD and get into dietary supplements? This is in 2018, kind of like pushing towards 2019. And it took a full year of development, and we rebranded into Zuma Nutrition, launched in late 2019. So it took us a while to really get it going. And it took our time with like the branding and, everything. And so we launched December 2019, hard launch January 2020, right before, the pandemic happened. And which was actually interesting timing because there's a lot of benefit to e-commerce from that. And so that was kind of like how we got from zero to started. And we actually bought out that investor this year. So now it's just me and Richard running this business together. And, it's been a journey. That was just to the starting point. And, from there, it's been, lots of trial and error to figure out our growth strategies, but we're getting a lot of traction now. And we're up to about 30 SKUs. And, We just opened up a new industrial facility and we're growing pretty fast now. So yeah, it's a little background.
You did start with that initial fund, that investor, right? Who you were going to bring on for your friend's business. Like you just basically transitioned into your business at that point, right? So did you start entirely with their financial backing, or like did you put in some money? Richard put in some money. It was
Yeah. So I didn't put in any money, and during the transitional period when we actually got to the point that we were like scaling and we bought out this investor, we've had to put in a little bit. That was just like more so to get him like out of the picture, and then we like took over the business operations. And it was interesting timing because the business has been cash flow positive the last year, and which has been great because we call it bootstrapping. Like we haven't raised anything. We've just been funding with profits, which is challenging. But I also find there's a lot of benefit to doing that way. But yeah, that was basically how it happened. And yeah, no, I haven't put in anything other than I would say, I don't know exactly how many hours, but I'd say I'm nearing 10,000, that 10,000 number people talk about. I've put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the business, and
easily 10,000 hours, right?
yeah. And I from the result, I've become, I would say not an expert, but just below that at digital marketing. I'm getting to the point that I'm like very well versed in it. We do have experts that work for the team. And then similar with nutrition, I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I'm very well versed in nutrition sciences and nutrition, certified on a couple different levels. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing couple of years of experience. And yeah, I'm really happy I took that leap of faith out of real estate, because there's nothing like working in an industry that you're passionate about and waking up excited every day, and that's how I feel every day. I wake up and I, have a part of my morning routine is, looking into like everything that happened over the night before. And I think some people want to like not look at their emails, not look at work as part of their morning routine because it stresses them out. For me, it's like, no, I can't wait to look at it. So, yeah.
So did that love of nutrition or that nutrition background, I know you're a certified nutritionist, did that happen before you started Zuma, or like after or during?
It was, so, I would say when I was working for that previous company back in, I believe it was 2017 or I think it was late 2017 into 2018 that I was working for that company. And during that period, I knew very little about nutrition, but I did play D1 sports in college. I played soccer, and I always was like pretty knowledgeable in like biomechanics and, muscle training and, that side of things. Kind of very intro level knowledge of nutrition. Like I took a nutrition class in college, but I didn't know much. And so once I started transitioning away where I was no longer working with that person and working on starting my own company, I started studying nutrition like obsessively. I went through a year of, just going through that period where you're like reading a book and they recommend books and you read those books and, you just like go deeper and deeper. But it really, the place where I've learned everything has been from my mentorship from Richard Helfrich, my business partner. So like Richard is, I would consider him the most knowledgeable, like, health sciences person I've ever talked to, far and away. I know a lot of doctors. I know a lot of like chiropractors, gut health specialists, but Richard's level of knowledge, it's just wild. And so, before he committed to working with us, in the early parts, even when we started off talking about CBD, but for about a month, we were just getting coffee once a week. And he started teaching me just about his life's work in the field of nutrition. And, a lot of his expertise, got to be careful talking about because he did a lot of like working with people and, like on different conditions and things like that. Some of that stuff, I don't like to mention like specific conditions he specialized in, but like he's, I'll just say that he helped people that were sick get better. So he wouldn't just work with, the way that I do. I don't do that. What I do is I work with people on improving their life, improving their nutrition, improving their gut health preventatively. I don't take a sick person and do testing on them and make protocols for them. That's for licensed practitioners to do. But yeah, I would say like most of the knowledge I've gotten has come from Richard. But I also have gone through a couple different certifications as well. Yeah.
Gotcha. So that journey from zero to where you're now you've bought out your investor and you're profitable. Tell me a little bit more about that story. Like what were some of the trials and tribulations along the road?
Yeah. So some of it I can't talk about too much in detail just because of like legal stuff. But yeah, I'll just say, anyone who's looking to start up a business, it's interesting because like money is very important, but also your time is very important. And, if you're going to, say somebody's like, hey, okay, I'm going to fund it, your business, and you're so excited you get the funding, but you're going to do all the work. You got to be careful with that because first of all, it's like, okay, like what type of money am I getting? Am I getting debt or am I getting equity? If I'm doing equity, meaning you're selling a percentage of the business for cash, how much equity am I giving up? If I'm doing debt, what are the payment terms? And if I don't pay it back in time, do they just take control of the company after? And so these are things I didn't know at the time. Luckily, to be blunt, I would have lost everything if it wasn't for Richard, probably multiple times. Richard's older than me, and he's very sophisticated at business strategy and has lawyers that he works with. So that's part of how we were able to pull off that buyout. But just talking more broadly, I think one of the things that I've learned is it's very common when you're trying to raise funding. Let's say you just need $100,000 to get this business off the ground. First of all, you probably need more than that, but also you get so excited when you get somebody committed to giving you the money that you don't read the fine print, and that's where you need to go really slow because say you get the $100,000, you're about to commit to putting in thousands of hours of your time into building this business. And if you don't read the fine print, it could be for nothing. Like literally you could lose the business if you don't pay back in time. But I am a fan of using debt early on and not equity because I think that you need to keep that equity early on because, the valuations, is worth nothing when you're starting the business. It's just, theoretical at a certain point. But, yeah, basically, we, kind of had with that third partner interest in getting him out, and we're able to get the transaction done. And it was very from the beginning. Richard and I kind of always felt that we wanted it to be us too, and now it is. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah, so many people underrate or have very different expectations of really what it takes to get something off the ground. Right? I don't think it's possible to like just bootstrap it on revenue and put the profits back in. I think the only way to make any business work, not just supplement business really, is to have an influx of cash, right? Like you said, whether that's debt or investors. But either way around it, you're still going to put in your 10,000 hours no matter what, which is really where the passion comes from. Because the passion will only get you. Passion doesn't mean success, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to be successful in your business. It just means that you're going to be able to get through those 10,000 hours, which is what it's going to take. And if you're not passionate about something, like if you're not passionate about supplements or nutrition, it's going to be harder for you to get through that slog.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have said this before to people. I don't know if I've ever said it to you, but I would have quit if it wasn't for the fact that I'm extremely passionate about it. Like it just would have been really hard if I was just doing some business that I didn't really care about and it was just for money. Like it's been so hard so many different times, so many walls I've hit, so many days where I just like I'm frustrated and burnt out, but I love it. And it's like I've never thought about stopping. And and it goes on the other end. If you're like an investor and you're looking to like get a business going, it's like you need somebody who's like that. And I think that there's it's very common for that person, who was me in this case, to undervalue themselves. And like when they're like, oh, like I'll do it for a little bit of equity, I just want to like sweat equity this. It's like, no, it's like you're committing your life, because like building entrepreneurial ventures can take a long time. And especially early on when you don't have a lot of funding, even if you do have some seed funding, like you don't have really deep pockets where you can go hire an agency, which I don't know if I would recommend that anyways, but you would be doing everything yourself is what I'm getting at. So, value that, because it's like, I guarantee even if you have a deep pocket investor and they're like trying to bully you on the equity split, it's like, no, it's like, you wouldn't want to do this. You don't have time to. It's like, you need to value that.
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. It's, you never know what you're stepping into when you're starting out. Right.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you said about needing funding, I think that it depends on what industry you're in for sure. Because if you're doing a service-based business, it might be a little bit easier to get a couple clients and get some cash coming in. I often encourage like some friends that are looking to start businesses. I'm like, oh, is there anything you can do that's like service based where you're like offering a service, and maybe you could offer that and then get into CPG, consumer product goods, because consumer product goods is very, it's a multiple year project to break even, in my opinion, the only time I ever see it different is if you're like an influencer or have some sort of an existing brand that you're leveraging. Some of those people are able to launch a consumer product goods brand, and they're really leveraging their own brand to push this brand into like a place that they wouldn't be if they were starting from scratch.
Right. But they already put in the sweat equity of 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To build that following, to build that brand.
And they could make the mistake of saying, oh, like I was profitable right away, but it's like, no, you weren't. It's like, think about you're leveraging something else that you've built. Because if you're starting from scratch in consumer product goods, it's like you have to build that brand recognition, and that costs money. And then the other part of it, which I've learned about, is, if you want to develop craft, custom, high quality products and not just be working with like a big private label manufacturing facility, inventory requirements are serious. And particularly as you scale, higher sales means projecting further into the future to estimate how many units you'll need. And overall, it leads to, like in a competitive industry like dietary supplements, if you want to have a unique product line, I think I wouldn't recommend anyone doing it unless if they had, like, at the very least, I would say like maybe $250,000 cash available to get off the ground. You could do it with less, like you could do it with 100 up front and then maybe like 100 at month 10, or, and then, maybe like you could do it if you were really lean and mean, you might be able to break even with that and get going. But it's a competitive industry, and, like cash is needed to get off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is like the cash is like the blood, right? Without it, you can't keep the other business mechanisms. They'll just cease up. You won't be able to keep them moving. Specifically, traffic, like what you mentioned, also like inventory, fulfillment, all those other pieces that you need to kind of keep spinning in order to have the cash coming in. If you stop that,
absolutely,
and if you stop that, it's akin to sort of stopping the flood of the blow in the body, and the whole thing's going to cease up.
Yeah, and it'll happen fast too. I've like learned that, because it's like, even if it's like a well-oiled machine and it's running, if one piece of the business stops, it's like your fulfillment stops. Or if you're, I haven't even talked to you about this. We recently had a FDA audit of one of our manufacturing facilities, and it went super well. But it was a 2-week shutdown, and so we had a batch of units that were 2 weeks delayed in coming to us. It was a key product too. And it's like, it's very easy to like kind of underestimate, but it's like one product delayed, and all of a sudden like all these different pieces are moving. And so like, you're right, without cash flow and, especially early on, like liquid cash that, you can invest into the business, it won't work. And I think early on, especially, I had the mistake of like looking at inventory investments or even investing in infrastructure as like, oh my God, like I'm spending money, but it's like, no, you're like investing into your business. And it's important. That's why you need cash, because it's not necessarily that you're just like throwing it away. Although you will early on throw it away on some stuff, but you literally like need it to like build a business. And it's like building a house. You can't build a house without buying wood.
All right. So other than cash, like what else would you recommend to like a startup supplement entrepreneur?
Definitely would say like talented e-commerce experts are hard to find, and the key to becoming successful. Like one really talented person can change your business, and one person who says they're talented that perhaps, particularly when it comes to paid advertising, it's like, unless if you maybe have like some professional athlete that's pushing for you, even then you'll still need this paid advertising expert. And I went through the ringer with that hiring process, but that person is so key, because if they understand how all the different channels interplay, it can make such a difference. So like when I first started, we were really pushing hard on Facebook ads / Meta, Instagram, whatever you want to call it. And if I could go back, I would have done it differently. It probably would have saved a a lot of money like that we could have put into other places to have cash flowed quicker. So that would be a key piece for sure. It depends on your logistics. Like I got to I didn't have necessarily an influencer, but I had Richard's infrastructure that I got to start with. But I mean, if I didn't have that, you definitely need a really good person on shipping logistics and warehousing. That's something that I got to benefit from starting with. Same with product development. I personally think we're at the point in the industry where, you really need unique products. I think that if you were to come out and launch like a probiotic fish oil, like really basic product line right now, it might be hard just because the industry is changing. It's getting more competitive. CPAs are going up. So like good products. See like what other pieces. I definitely would say you got to have that passion that inside, it's like be like not just doing this for a side hustle. Like this needs to be something that you could, I guess it could be your second job, but it needs to be something that you take seriously. Definitely would say that there's some tangibles of good website developer, and ideally really good graphic designer, and then really good copywriter, which plays into your skill set, Bobby, kind of how all those pieces fit together. And I think if you combine all those pieces, you can get off the ground.
Yeah, it really takes a village, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. And I have some friends that are trying to do other types of businesses on their own. And I feel bad for them. I'm just like, oh my God, but we're at the point now where we have so many amazing, talented people that are contributing, and it would be really hard to I couldn't do it at the point that we're at now. Cause like, particularly as you grow, it's like, yeah, like there's no way that we could do, everyone's got to evaluate their own piece. Yeah.
Do you think it gets harder as you grow or easier as you grow?
I'm enjoying it more now that we've grown. I think that there's, bigger problems that come up, like the example I just gave you, it was like in the past, there's more money to be made or lost as you scale, which could be more stressful. But I think that it also gets more fun, as you scale, because you can afford to hire more people. And I think that's such a key piece is, we recently launched a Pinterest, for example, and the Pinterest is going really well for us. And it's pretty streamlined for me. I have 2 people that help me with creating pins, and the Pinterest is becoming it's not necessarily a high profitable channel, which we can talk about channel by channel if you want to on this, but it's a brand awareness channel. But, I couldn't do it on my own. I don't have time, but just being able to be like, oh, I want to get this channel going, and we can afford to hire people. And I think that gets a lot more fun than when it's early on and you have to do everything yourself. And you truly do have to do everything by yourself early on, unless if you have some capability of like funding or something like that. It's like so I think that I've been able to become more specialized myself. And I think that's like my favorite part is I'm able to focus on some of my best skill sets.
I'd love to hear your perspective on like the dichotomy between building a brand and really selling the product, like direct to consumer. Because on the one side, you need the numbers to work. You need the cost per acquisition to be where it needs to be in order to be profitable, in order to get the plane off the runway, right? And that takes a lot of direct response kind of style selling, copy, tactics, and everything that we've done, right? But on the other side, there's the brand side of things, and they're often conflicting with them too, right? I'd love to get your perspective on that, because I do think the industry is heading more towards away from that DR direct response, more towards a brand, but it's in a transition state right now. So it's in a hybrid state right now. I don't think it'll go completely away from the direct response, but I'd love to get your take on where you think the industry is going on that, and also your personal views on those two schools of thought.
Yeah, absolutely. That is quite the dichotomy, because it's something that we've talked about a lot. Me and one of our main copywriters talk about this all the time. I feel that there's a fine line between selling something and overselling it. But the tricky thing is early on when you're trying to get off the ground, it's like if you don't make any health claims about your products, it's very hard to get the conversion rates that you need to be successful. On the other hand, if you like make no claims and you launch a landing page, like it just won't sell unless if there's some, one of the things to mention is, if you are doing paid advertising, It's a little bit of a tougher audience than if you're doing organic marketing, like some of these influencers do. So like some of those, or, if somebody's buying from an influencer, say they have like a website brand that they launch, a lot of people just want to buy just so that they can kind of experience that influencer's aura, let's call it. And they don't really read the copy. They just want to buy. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about paid advertising here. And when it comes to paid advertising, that copywriting, direct response style writing is so critical. However, if you take it too far, I think that there's a lot of users that can sense that now. And I think one of the things that I'll just talk about from our experience is we're getting to the point now where we're able to kind of tone it back a little bit more on the direct response style writing and focus a little bit more on brand experience, but we couldn't do that in the beginning. So I think that it's necessary in the early stages, particularly if you're relying on paid advertising because you're competing in a competitive world out there. You need to be ethical when you do it. I mean, not everyone is, but I think that it's important to stay ethical. I think customers can sense that, not promising a product as a panacea, going to fix everything for people. But that's, I guess, my comment on that. But yeah, one of the best examples of like customer experience versus the other side of it, which is, like scaling and importance of like direct response style marketing is upsells. And, like say that you're like, I don't want to do any bundling. I don't want to do any upsells. So like, whether it's on page or post purchase or even like the little pre-purchase pop-up, you're like, I just think it's not great for customer experience. Right. And say your AOV is sitting at $60 or $50 or $40. And then you put in those upsells and like you get the full funnel set up, like, you specialize in, you could push that AOV up to $100 or depending on your price of your products, maybe, $60 to $100. Yeah, that's huge, and it's necessary to scale in my opinion. And so sometimes you just have to do that, like evaluation of whether the pros and cons. Cause I think that on the other hand, hitting people with a direct response style email marketing campaign twice a week, that's way too much. Like now you're just like kind of saturating your email list, damaging your customer trust. But, there's certain places like where I think, using funnels to get your AOV to almost double, where you're like, hey, like this is working. For us, we're pretty lucky because a lot of our products work best like in protocols together. And so we're not, we're able to like recommend very softly that people use them together and it works. But, even if we didn't have that, I still would do upsells because it's just sometimes the value is worth it.
Yeah. I mean, the average AOV, for anyone listening doesn't understand that term, average order value. And in the supplement industry, really the sweet spot for AOV is like $150 to $200. And really the reason for that, the reason why it's so high is because of the high acquisition cost to acquire a customer from a cold traffic source. So it's almost like the business that you start is not, you do things in the beginning that you may not do as you grow. So as you grow and scale, like you said, there's more risk. You become a different person, you become a different company at that point. And it's almost like you're starting again at that point, right? The way I see it is you start out in the supplement space, you start out direct response because it's the only way to survive. It's the only way to do it. And then you transition to a more branded approach, but after you've gotten traction, after you've gotten built up customers, built up buyers, built up email lists, after you understand the game, basically, do you kind of see it that way, or do you think it's kind of a different approach from your perspective?
No, I agree. Yeah. I don't know if everyone else would agree with us, but I know that I agree with you. Yeah. Like I think that early on, if you were to launch, any type of advertising to a page that's just, talking about how amazing your brand. I always call it like patting yourself on the back when you like talk about like more like, oh, like we're such an amazing brand. We, have such good sourcing and, you're not talking about specifically how does this affect you? It's like, no, it's more about like the brand and it's more broad because that is safer advertising because you're, not getting into like somebody's feelings and emotions. You're just talking broadly. If you do that with paid advertising, like it won't work. And then you'll just, like have to go back to the drawing board. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because Richard and I have been talking about that turning point now. Like we're kind of like, hey, we've hit that point where, we're definitely not anywhere where we want to be. Like we want to keep growing exponentially, but where we can start to think more and more about customer experience, which leads us to like some of our newer things that we're working on that are more focused on customer experience. And, so I think there is that kind of point that you reach where you can start to transition. And, email marketing is a huge part of that, in my opinion. I think email marketing is a channel that, like when I first started getting into e-commerce, I was like, oh, there's so many channels. Like email is just another one. It's like, no, email is super key.
Yeah.
This guy, Phil Rivers, shout out Phil. He's a cool guy. He runs a company called Tetra, and it's Go Tetra or Tetra. He trained me on email marketing. And my advice to anyone that's getting started with a dietary supplements brand is to do the email marketing themselves. It's a very profitable channel. And the amount of hours you have to invest into doing it yourself is worth it, because it's like a very high converting, important channel. And it's with the softwares like Klaviyo that are out now, which is what we use. There's also other really amazing softwares like MailChimp, and it's easy to learn how to do it yourselves. And a lot of agencies and email marketing experts charge like a percentage of revenue driven by email marketing. And it's like not worth it, in my opinion, to pay somebody 10%. Some of them ask 20%, which is crazy, retainers, because it's like you could be managing it yourself with maybe 5 hours, 6 hours of work a month.
How do you feel about customer service? Because that's another one of those tasks that very early on, it's like really beneficial to do that yourself, because then you understand the voice of the customer, what they're dealing with, their complaints, but it's also one of those tasks that is a really big time suck early on, like you mentioned earlier, where you got to protect your time.
Yeah, I would recommend doing it yourself and treating it as a giant survey. I remember when we first started working together, you asked me like, hey, do we need to do a survey? I'm like, I've done the biggest survey of all time. My brain hurts though. But I do think it's important to also start to line that person up like right away, because it's like, if you're scaling, you can hit a point faster than you think, where all of a sudden it sucks away your energy from being able to focus on other aspects of the business. So I think do it yourself, but like line somebody up who can do it. We do it in-house. I'm actually thinking about trying to open up very soon, like a larger portion of the business that's focused on customer service, because it's more than with dietary supplements. It's more than just helping people with lost orders. It's making them feel, people are calling about their, emotions. And while we can't give medical advice, talking to them about like, specific conditions or anything like that, like even something as small as telling them that on the phone, being like, yeah, like we can't give you medical advice, but we could refer you to somebody who could. And, here's some information on some products that we have. Would you like us to send you your catalog? Like, that could be the difference of that person converting or not. It's a very important aspect of the business, customer service, but it can stretch you thin very fast. If you start, maybe you hit a good channel and start scaling really fast, it's like next thing you know, you won't be able to do it. But early on, I think it is really important to do it yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like success is just as dangerous as failure, right? Because if you do start scaling really fast, other things will fall off, like the wheels may fall off, or one wheel may fall off, right? Like customer service wheel may fall off if you're doing that yourself. I remember when you offloaded that was such a big relief for you, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it was. And it's interesting you say that too. Like when it comes to scaling, you're absolutely right. Like there's a way to do it that's best for the business, and every business has different infrastructure depending on how you're set up. Some businesses probably, if they could scale as fast as possible, that'd be great. I think that would be more like those, there's some, I know I've actually listened to some of your episodes, how like some people work with like private label labs that will even do the shipping for them. It's like everything is private labeled and they don't even have to touch product. Like for them, growing sales exponentially is fantastic. But if you're doing a lot of stuff like craft product development in-house, fulfillment in-house, it can be really detrimental to like if your sales are like this, or even just, kind of like turbulent, like you want them to be very gradual so you can forecast. And that's another challenging aspect of what we have to do with this product line. Like we haven't talked about the products at all, but, we work with some really fine materials. Some of them are unique, sources, and do a lot of, all of our extractions with our biochemists in house. And it's, gradual sales is good for us, but for other people, it might not be. Yeah. Like gradual sale growth. I mean, like you definitely don't want to be stagnant, but like, you don't want to, if we were to just double in size next month, that wouldn't be good for us.
Yeah. Like things would start to break, right? Like things that can potentially end, like kill the business really, when you think about it.
Absolutely would kill the business. Yeah. If we were to 10X in a month, it would not be good for us. Yeah. We would figure it out, but it would be hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really two different types of businesses. Like you said, like that other supplement business who's really just taking off the shelf product and just trying to pump as much front end acquisition as they can. If they run out of inventory, their business falls apart too, right? There are other things on the other side too. So I don't think there's one side or the other that's really better or more beneficial. It's really just two different businesses. It really depends on what resources you have available, right? It depends if you have capital investment or non-capital investment. And like we said, you're going to need a certain amount of that no matter what. But it's really two different businesses, fundamentally completely different.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, there's different, that leads us to a really interesting topic. I know that you're asking me all the questions, but when I look at, so I use a really cool website called Ahrefs. I think we've talked about that a lot, and
yeah, I love that.
I use it. Yeah, it's an amazing website, right? I use it I'm back to it, by the way. I tried switching off, but I'm back. It's such a good website. And, I'll use it, and I look at businesses' marketing strategies using that software. And I even see there's two different types of businesses with how they advertise. And, it's pretty interesting. I can, when you're advertising, those types of products that are kind of off the shelf, you have to advertise in a certain way because it's necessary to get that brand recognition out there. So they basically have to top of funnel advertise aggressively it. And it's interesting. I look at those types of businesses and I can see I'm like, oh, that's that type of business. I can see from their advertising strategies. Yeah. It's usually a lot of YouTube and Instagram.
The SEO route is a really slow route though, right?
Oh yeah.
You got to put in hundreds and hundreds of articles before you start to see any growth, right? Because it's pretty much like a flat line. And then it's like a hockey stick, right?
It can be, or it could be a flat line.
Well, that's true. Assuming you got your SEO keyword right and your content right. But
SEO is one of those channels where when I was first starting out, for some reason I've always been very enthusiastic about that channel, since the day I started. And I know why. It's because when you think about SEO, it's evergreen. It's long-term. It just gets better and better. But when I first started, I talked to some people and they were like, you shouldn't spend any money on that up front. You should spend money on getting sales, direct response, getting money in the door, getting product out there, getting your, emails, your SMS, capturing that, customer, awareness. I didn't listen. I regret it now. I at the same time, I don't, because we've been able to get to this point and now we've been doing SEO for quite a few years. But it's a challenging channel. But the thing about SEO is, if it's done properly and it's done for very, very long periods of time, it can be an amazing brand awareness channel. It can even be a little bit of a middle of funnel channel too, depending on what type of articles you write. It can be a very powerful channel for a brand, absolutely. But when I look at most businesses, it's pretty rare because I look at one of the first things I'll do whenever I find out about a new company is I'll just plug them into Ahrefs and kind of check them out a bit. And it's pretty rare that I see companies that aren't, it's one thing if it's a 10-year-old company like Gaia Herbs, of course they're going to do SEO because they're, they've raised, I think, I don't want to name a number, but I think they raised over 90 million at this point. And so of course, when you have that much funding, you're going to do SEO, but for newer brands, it's kind of rare that you see it, but some people do it and it can be a very successful, profitable channel if it's done properly.
Yeah. On the supplement side, I only see two things on like the SEO. The companies like yours that do it really, really well, and other companies that they just don't even do it at all, right? Like this is all paid acquisition.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's like, I would say, if you're going to work with an agency, it's just so hard the way that they price the service.
Yeah.
We do all of our stuff in house, just like at this point we do everything in house. But if you're going to just work with an agency and expect it to be white hat where they like do everything for you, they price it out per page that they're building for you, and they consider a blog a page. And like, that's just not something that's going to work out for you long-term. If you're paying like, let's just say I worked with this one SEO firm. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about naming names like like firms that I work with? Yeah.
Up to you. Only up to you.
Yeah. So I worked with this company, Straight North. It's like Straight North, basically they price out their, like page optimization per page and do it based off a retainer. So like, for example, like a $3,000 a month retainer will get you like 3 pages built out per month. A $5,000 retainer will get you like 5 pages. I'm kind of estimating roughly, but I don't think that's enough to be successful. I think that if you want to be really doing well with SEO, you need to be pushing out maybe 20 pages a month or 15 pages a month and having a lot of research going into like what's on those pages. And they have to have good technical SEO. But like maybe somebody launching a brand that's listening to this is an amazing writer themselves. And, they, have a friend who's a developer. I think that those are like the two components that go into like, if you have the copywriting and then you have the developer, you can build out content yourself. And then you can be pushing out 10, 15, 20 articles a month. And then that is what you need, in my opinion, to build a successful SEO strategy among some other pieces as well. But yeah.
It's also a really good moat, right? It's like, you've got the SEO moat, and you also got the actual the product moat because your products are super unique, right? So those are two moats that like are really hard to compete against once you've built them up over time. Right? The longer you've been doing SEO, the harder and harder it gets for someone else to compete against you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a journey, yeah. But our domain rating's been growing every month for years, and I think right now one of the nice things too is like once you get momentum and a channel becomes profitable, you're more comfortable investing more into it. It's logical. It's same with like CRO. If you do an A/B test and you get a huge win, and you all of a sudden are making an extra $20,000 on your bottom line per month, you're like, hey, like let's go heavy on CRO, and it's the same with SEO. It's like we're at that point now where it's a very profitable channel for us, and it's producing a lot of traffic. And for me, like one of the key things with channels is I look at, it's really important to know what a channel is supposed to be. So like if you're looking at SEO or Pinterest, right, those channels are not supposed to be very transactional channels. A lot of the time people are learning on those channels. So, whether they're researching recipes on Pinterest or they're maybe doing some reading about, liver health on Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo. And they discover your blog and they read your article and they don't buy. Like that's still like, you should be looking at those impressions and those clicks and that brand awareness that's like what the goal of the channels are. But I made that mistake when I first got started. I was always looking at like, how many dollars is it driving? And I would like think that way. And, but there are channels that are more transactional, but those brand awareness channels are really important. Yeah. Because paying for brand awareness, the top of funnel advertising is very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Where you almost forced to go more on the direct response side versus the brand side, because you need cash flow. You need the lifeblood of the business to come in and start flowing so that you can scale and optimize. And without that, if you put all the money towards the brand side or the top of the funnel side, it's a much lower route, and it's also a more expensive route. If you have the funds to do it over time, you can do it. You can afford to do it, right? But most people don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the models that I see a lot in the industry right now, which I know we've talked about, I'm not sure if it's profitable or not, this model, like I have no idea, but it's like basically raise money, advertise everywhere. And then, they basically will be on every channel pushing, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, Google, like everywhere. And they build up subscription revenue pretty fast. And, if they build up like a lot of subscription revenue at a certain point, like they're able to afford these higher CPAs because they just build up a subscriber base. I think that model is getting harder. I think that some people had a lot of success with that years ago. I know one brand particularly, it's like a coffee replacement brand that built up a huge subscription base back when Facebook ads were super easy. And now if you're trying to go toe to toe with them, they can just crush you because they could take probably double what of a cost per acquisition that you can, because they've just been, like able to maintain this huge subscriber base. But I know that is a really popular model right now. And once you build up that subscription base, you do another raise, you keep pushing that subscription base. My concern about that type of model is I think that you're at a certain point going to saturate, and then it's going to get really hard, Yeah.
Yeah. We're seeing that with Netflix, right? They've saturated the market and there's just no one else to really subscribe to Netflix, right? It's the same.
Yeah. If you can grow to the size of Netflix, though, I feel like I'll be in really good shape. But it's a real thing. And I talked to some of our e-com people that we work with about that. Like, it's a real issue that people run into, like say you have like one product and you're thinking like, I'm going to spend the money I raised, build this subscription. You're running numbers where you're like, I'm going to get up to this level of subscription revenue and I'll be profitable. But like, I really do think that like the business being efficient is important, is what I'm getting at, and not just spending money to spend money. Like, I think that finding efficiency in your marketing strategies is important. And that's why I love SEO. It's long-term, it's a free channel outside of your cost to create content and post it and optimize it. It's, like something that you get free traffic for. And I think that those channels are underused in today's world. Yeah.
100%. I think everybody is, they just want, their expectation is just faster and faster, right? They want to be profitable faster. They don't want to put in the 20, 30 articles a month for a year plus before they see any return on it. And
it really is like that, by the way, anyone thinking about doing it. Like, I had a very hard time. I think, just talking numbers, we probably put year one, probably around like 40 grand into it, 0 traffic. Year two, I think everyone told me after year one, I was like thinking it was some magical point that you'd hit in month 12 where you're like, oh, it's hockey stick. Year two was probably like 36 grand, maybe more, maybe like 45 again, something like that. Crickets. And then it was like, we started to hit the point where it was like, boom, like it started to get some traction. And I'd say we're at the point now where we've made that money back from SEO, and it's a very good channel for us. And that is how it works. It's like long-term, it becomes a really good channel, and now you have that channel and it's evergreen. And like the thing I love about SEO is sometimes a little bit separate than profits and, like money and, brand awareness. I just enjoy it. Like I enjoy writing. It's one of my hobbies. I do a lot of the copywriting myself, along with some other people that work with us. And I think it's a fun channel. I enjoy it more than some people are really good at like creating TikTok videos and shooting content. Like I would prefer to have people help me with that. Like, it's not my specialty. I also don't love social media. I think it's not great for your brain. Unless if you are very disciplined, but if you're not disciplined, it can be not great for your brain. And like, to me, reading other articles and then writing my own articles and then posting them and giving them pretty pictures, and like, I kind of enjoy the process.
Yeah, it helps you think too, right? It makes you a better thinker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, social media is another interesting channel, right now. It's, I would say, it's a very interesting time in social, just because like Instagram's platform's rocky with, their, I think it was iOS updates that kind of put their platform for a spin. And, the pandemic caused all this censorship, which led to volatility with like, a lot of advertising accounts being banned and shadow bans. Interesting time in the world of social.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm waiting for that the next new tool to emerge on the market. Really, I think we're kind of due for one. I'm almost wondering if it's going to be like an Apple ad platform, because if you think about it, Apple, they've got all the information, right? They know
Yeah, they could build the best channel of them all. Yeah.
Yeah, they can tie the mobile together with the browser, the Safari browser, right? Like they can just put Google and Facebook out of business on the ad level if they wanted to.
That would be pretty interesting. Yeah, they do have a lot of information. Yeah, I've never thought about that, but yeah,
I don't know if they will. I mean, I think it would be killer if they did, and it would be great opportunity for all marketers if they did. But
I wish they would. Yeah, I have a different perspective as a marketer. I feel like when I hear the government coming out with regulations to make advertising harder and harder and harder, and it's like I don't love that. I think that like at the end of the day, it's a good thing if there was a bunch of channels that were really easy for entrepreneurs to get really attractive CPAs. More people would be buying products that fit them better, and more people would be making profits, and then probably spending that money elsewhere in the economy. I feel like sometimes it's frustrating because it's, like digital marketing. It's interesting. It's like easier than ever because there's such amazing tools, but it's also harder than ever because there's more regulation, more, issues with like tracking and cookies and privacy and all these new restrictions are coming out on a state by state level. But at the same time, it's an easier time to get into digital marketing because there's such amazing softwares out there.
yeah, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, it probably nets out to be equal on both sides, right? Like it's not like it's going to become super easy, 5-10 years from now, or become super hard 5-10 years from now, right? It's going to be that same sort of rocky situation at any point in the future. So it's like the best time to start a business is always yesterday.
I agree. I 100% agree. I think that, the one thing I would say in this industry, is like, I really do think product quality is an important aspect,
And yeah. And owning the customer too. If you can't own the customer, you can't have a business, right? So
yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about there. And, it's like, if you, the hard part is getting the customer. If you have a great product, then you have a great chance of keeping them. And, that lifetime value will be attractive. You're looking at your lifetime value analysis. You're like, oh, this is good, and it'll keep going up over time as you build more of a brand. But it all comes down to that product quality. And, that's, we were talking about that direct response versus, customer experience. I think when it comes to the product, always thinking about the customer up front. You do have to pay attention to margins for sure. Margins are super important. We didn't talk about that at all, but like it is an important aspect of a business. If you're like, I want to go all for the customer and your product costs you like, way too much. And you're just like, I want to make it super cheap. Like, yeah, it's not going to work. It's like, there is an element of importance there, but taking that off the table, like focusing on what is something that's going to be the most beneficial for a customer. That I think that should always come forefront in your product development, not just come out with a product to come out with a product.
Absolutely. It's all about the customer, knowing the customer, servicing the customer, and really helping the customer at the end of the day. And that goes back to like SEO too, right? It's really the way to win at SEO is to have a more informative page that serves the customer better, that serves that reader better. And that's just, it's just like a product.
Yeah, we've taken that approach with SEO more recently, I would say, where, like if we're writing, say 15 blogs a month, maybe at least 6 of them, maybe 7 are going to be articles that we want to write because we feel that these articles are going to be good for our current customers. So it's like taking SEO off the table because, if you write every article, it's fully focused on just, we found this, website that's getting traffic from this random article. We're going to write a better article. Like that is a piece of SEO, but like it's a huge piece of like writing valuable content that people want to link to. So
valuable content, valuable products.
Yeah.
That's how you get a valuable customer. Right.
Absolutely. And there is a huge difference in customers too. Like we've learned that, like depending on what type of advertising channels you're focusing on and, like who you're working with as influencers or, there's customers that are like your dream, what do they call them? Your persona or your prototype, your like ideal customer profile. And then there's people who will literally email you and be like, hey, what's your policy on returns? Can I try this product and return it if I don't like? And like, there's people that will literally email you that and you're like, yeah, sure. And then they will order the product, use it, and be like, I want a full refund. And like, that's your worst type of customer, in my opinion. It's worse than somebody who just doesn't buy because they're like going to put you out of business if there's a lot of those. Yeah, like that's just something to think about, is like when you're starting to think about, oh my God, somebody gave me this amazing opportunity to advertise on this channel. And like, I can reach so many people. It's like, who are you reaching? And are they going to help you build your brand? Are they actually people that are a good fit for your ideal customer? Yeah.
Brian, absolutely. Absolutely. Jordan, it's been a pleasure. Any parting thoughts or where people can go to learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say like our website would be a great place if you ever want to like chat. Anyone that listens to this, if you want to chat, like just reach out. My email and phone number. If you reach out to the information on the website, they can refer you to me. And yeah, like just go for it. Don't hold back. Like you said, the best time to start a business is yesterday. I think it'll be challenging at first, but if you just keep going. Just keep pushing through walls. It does get better and better, but it won't be easy at first. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate your time, Bobby. And, it's always a pleasure working with you. Yeah.
Creative Thirst is a direct response digital agency focusing on conversion rate optimization and A/B testing. We work with dietary supplement companies who are struggling to maximize the profitability of their funnels so they can scale. Through the last 7 years in the online health space, we've optimized many dietary supplement businesses. And in that time, we've uncovered the 3 critical funnels for success. We put together that information in a free digital download called The 3 Funnels Every Health Supplement Business Needs to Build a Multi-million-dollar Empire. You can get that free report by going to creativethirst.com. Scroll down to the appropriate section and click on the blue Get Your ebook button.